Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance, an RPG where you roleplay going around 1403 Bohemia, checking what Tinder would look like. And hey, my boy Henry must be paying for the premium version, cause he scored 2 baddies easily. I mean, he is a blacksmith's son, so he must be accustomed to putting his metal rod in hot places. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, yes, he's showing gameplay from Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, but I'm sure he'll talk about KCD 2, which just released this year, right? Wake up, old man! This is 2025, where games launch so poorly optimized that GPUs released this year can't even handle running them at 60 FPS. So yeah, I'm forced to review an 8-year-old game because only now we can run them. So, Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game that I've been itching to play ever since 2 of my friends recommended it to me, promising both good gameplay and amazing immersion. Now, it tends to require a lot of convincing for me to consider playing an RPG. Not because I dislike them, in fact, it's one of the genres with some of my favorite games. But in general, the gap between what makes a good and a great RPG tends to be bigger for me. For example, on the screen are some of my most memorable RPGs, and some of them that I've labeled as good would probably make most people desire that my head go rolling. Now, there's 2 criteria that weigh heavily on my judgment. One is the immersion, meaning how good is the writing of the character I'm going to play and whether his motivation, powers, and story make sense. And 2 is the journey, and how well it is translated into gameplay. Meaning if I will feel myself getting stronger, if the loot and gear will be relevant, if my character will have access to different skills, and just overall unlocking solutions to quests that wouldn't be possible had I not played the way I played. And I can already tell you, it delivers until my kingdom came. Haha, funny joke. Now, the fun thing is that I can choose whether to start talking about the story or the gameplay. The game is so well designed that both elements bleed into each other, creating a synergy between gameplay and story. And that's something a few games can do. One of the best things it accomplishes is translating perfectly the journey of a hero to our video game medium. You will start your life as a peasant, a blacksmith's son, with the initial quests being literally mundane tasks. But don't let that distract you, because the game wills to find ways to fit combat, sneaking, lockpicking, speech, and so many more tutorials into this commoner's life. You can choose to talk your way into someone paying their debt, beat the shit out of them, or steal from them through pickpocket or lockpicking. Hey, it's not stealing if they never paid you, alright? Ownership is not transferred until the transaction is done, capiche? And the game will teach you basic combat, both armed and unarmed, but only the basics. As you progress on your story, only then will the game introduce certain NPCs that help you further. But it's not like the game is gatekeeping mechanics, no, it's only omitting information. And that makes sense, a son of a blacksmith that is learning from a wandering swordsman wouldn't know everything that there is to weapon handling. And only when you meet with more experienced soldiers and they see you as someone fit to learn those skills that they will teach you things like perfect guard, master strikes, and combos. And hey, the fact that only information is held back, it means that for players that already played through the game, their second run can be much more enjoyable since they know a bunch of mechanics that they shouldn't know, opening up way more possibilities. And that can also happen to more curious players who mess around with the controls. Now, I know that some of you must be thinking, what a boring game, isn't the whole point of games to be fun and feel good? Why am I a lame peasant that sucks at everything? And well, maybe that's where you and I differ. I dislike Skyrim for that exact reason. Just in the opening minutes, you'll be sent to execution, survive a dragon attack, just 2 minutes later, slay one and be crowned Dragonborn. From that point, your destiny is already stolen from you, since just with the title alone, you are destined to greatness. It is not something you achieve, it is something destined to you. Not only that, but it can leave a lot of gaps in the narrative, with you being a chosen one but not being given the best gear from the get-go. After all, you are this universe's best hope, but you just don't feel treated that manner. Or even worse, you might get shitty to no special treatment from people who should know or be aware of your importance. Now, take something like Fallout New Vegas. You are just a courier who ends up carrying a sensitive package that a lot of people want for their own gain. You end up getting shot and by luck you survive. And now you want to get your stolen package and get revenge on the motherfucker who shot you. Nothing is promised to you. No one knows you, and the people who would have known probably believe you are truly dead. To the point where you'll be so lame at the beginning that half the fucking things on the map will kill you. After all, you're not a hero, you're just a dumb human being moved by angry emotions. That's also why I prefer Oblivion. Yes, you appear in the Emperor's dream, but he never really gives you a full-on prophecy and a destiny. He just gives you a task, and you decide to comply. But the stakes are not even at you at the beginning, and more towards Martin accepting and him fulfilling his father's duty. This methodology allows for our character to grow in the story, and that ends up reflecting in what you will be feeling during gameplay, with your character growing in strength, charisma, reputation, and gear. But how does our character grow? What is his motivation? Well, his hometown is destroyed, his family is murdered in front of his own eyes, the last thing remaining from his father being a sword that ends up being stolen, and this is because of a throne dispute you had no stakes in. All of this desire for revenge and the unresolved promise to his deceased father serves as enough emotional motivation. I mean, emotion is what drives many people to do reckless things. Half the war and military propaganda is tugging on your feelings. But it also makes a little bit of logical sense. He lost most of the people who knew and trusted him. He's in a city he knows no one. He didn't pick up his father's skills, he has no inheritance, and what else will he do if not try to enlist and go after the people who ruined his life? Just live his life as a beggar? So yeah, he might be a commoner who doesn't know a thing about warfare and combat, but it makes sense for him to follow in this path, especially driven by all the emotions he's having. And that's the good thing, the game will pace your journey pretty nicely. First you'll be going around with the noblemen and the guards, getting some super basic gear, doing basic duties like closing inns and escorting people. And after you've proven yourself, then they will start giving you tasks to resolve local disputes, follow crime tracks, spying on the enemy, and to finally be recognized as a soldiers and participate on a military assault. And I mean, it's not like you can't go around trying to do your own thing, but oh boy does the game really sells the fantasy that you are a nobody at the start. The game doesn't have multiple difficulties, meaning they could find 2 enemies and enemy placements, and at the start, you'll be fucked to deal with a single bandit, let alone a little camp of 3 of them. Combat is very difficult, but really engaging. Enemies don't just take your hit. If they are bandits or soldiers, that probably means they already had the experience of engaging in violence and surviving. You, on the other hand, hasn't. They will block your attacks and find an opening to hit at you. And remember, you have just started your journey. You don't have plate or mail armor, so any hit you take will make contact with your frail armor and eventually your skin. A single hit will chip away a good chunk of your health, but also your stamina, handicapping the amount of attacks you can do now, making it even harder for you to win. Every hit comes with a payoff, both to you or to the enemy. And that's just like real life. It doesn't take that many cuts until you are unable to run or fight back. So I love that taking damage makes you more exhausted and less capable of fighting. And healing is also a pain. At the start there will be limited potions, they will be expensive for your pocket. Their effect is not instantaneous, so you can't easily heal in combat. If you want to heal for free, you have to do just like in real life, and let time mend your wounds. So prepare to be sleeping a lot at the start. But man, combat is so good. One of the problems that I have with some RPG is that melee combat just feels like smashing the left button. Cookie clicker fucking gameplay. Until the enemy dies. But Kingdom Come has a really complex system, by allowing for directional input. You can attack from 7 different angles. There are 5 directional slashes and 2 thrusts, 1 to the body and 1 to the head. You can see which way the enemy is holding and attack from the opposite direction, or you can feint from a side and switch to the other, messing with their guard. But it's also important to look into their gear. If they have a solid helmet, it might be better to go for the body, or if their chest plate are good against slashing, you might try to puncture him. Remember, any attack can cause someone to be concussed or bleed, and lose stamina. So reading the opponent correctly and landing the first damaging strike can make a huge difference in who wins the fight. And if you land attacks, there will be even some sequence of directions you can do so that you execute a combo strike. And it's also a good thing, since doing a flurry of attacks might not necessarily hit through his guard, but might end up breaking his stamina bar, preventing him from guarding. And I love this realism to combat. One of the things that took some time until I grew accustomed to was dealing with multiple enemies. If you're fighting alone against multiple targets, it is easy for them to circle you and hit you from blind spots, making you unable to guard and take direct damage. And that's just like real life, since you can only focus your strikes into a single target, allowing the enemies who are not in danger to close out on you and hit you from multiple directions that you won't even have time to react. So you have to learn to attack and move back, making sure no one gets behind you. One of the coolest things is the famous headshot, as aiming and hitting an open part of the face will lead to an instant kill. But don't think this will be easy, since at the start and with a shitty bow, stabilizing your aim will be hard. Your arm simply doesn't have the strength to hold it still. And your stamina will drain super fast. But just like in life, the more you do, the easier it will become. And soon you'll be taking entire camps before needing to engage in armed combat. Or you might stealth your way into the camp, taking out enemies before they engaged in combat, making sure there is as few as enemies as possible when you have to unstealth and unsheath your sword. See, sometimes difficult combat is not bad, since it will force you to interact with other game mechanics to make the combat more enjoyable. And again, it leads to a more realistic setting. Or did you expect a 15-year-old with barely any weapon training to handle multiple older and more experienced men? Oh right, that's where you got your sense of fantasy, huh? And as I've said, your gear is important. Your shitty sword will barely make a scratch into a fully armored enemy, so fighting them, even if you were a god at this game, will still take a ton of time, and any mistake can be your last. And that makes for a pretty engaging loop, since you are always on the lookout for battles or quests that you can achieve, allowing you to get some minor upgrades, which in turn allow you to take on more difficult quests and enemies, allowing you better loot and so on. I would even say that stats or leveling up doesn't really gives you that much strength, since at best we will unlock minor perks that will give you 5 to 10% increase in damage, stamina reduction, or breaking the enemy's posture and armor, while gear allows for bigger spikes in your actual numbers of damage and defense. And I love this, since if you somehow find a way to cheese your way into a stronger gear at the start, you'll be able to handle many more activities without any restraint. And it also makes sense. Yeah, you can hit the gym and gain strength, or run and develop agility, but you know what will actually survive a sword slash? Actual fucking plate armor! But that's not only in regards to combat. Some quests that require lockpicking, stealth, pickpocketing, or speech might be too hard. Remember, you are just a blacksmith's son. It's not like you'll be able to convince the nobility, stealth into stores, and lockpick castles. You never used the skills before, so you better start by preying on sleeping peasants and engaging with what objectives you can. And this obligation to do only quests you can handle leads to another good thing, which is the map. Traveling is so good in this game, not only because of the beautiful graphics and landscape, with little towns to full-on castles to beautiful farmlands and dense forests, but also because of the number of things and people you will discover. There will be hidden treasures, hunting spots, herbs, bandit camps, and much more, with even fast travel having random events like ambushes or people asking for help. And traveling will take real time. Even if you choose to fast travel, it's not a teleport type of travel. And depending on how fast your horse is, you can even save more time if you traverse while controlling your character, rather than leaving it to fast travel. This is important because quests and NPCs are time sensitive. Not only NPCs will have their daily routine, but they will also have times of the day when they will be at their shop or house, or others when they will be sleeping or doing an activity that prevents your interaction. This is good because it gives a feeling that the world exists on its own, and not to serve the protagonist. You are just another person like any other. Not only that, but because different people have different schedules, it allows you to plan your quests around that. After all, if a quest requires you to steal something, it might be a good idea to come at night. Or if you have to fight something, you might prefer to do it during the day to help with visibility. Because holy shit, the nights here are dark just like real life. It's giving me PTSD of playing Tarkov and going into my first night map, without night vision. Yes, cities made us forget how dark places can get during the night, especially forests. But back on track, some quests will be time sensitive. Take too long and people die. Objects get stolen, bandits flee, and so on. I don't think you can just load an old save and try again. I'm telling you, man, the game really wants you to leave your journey, since saving is only if you decide to sleep, quit the game, or use a consumable. So the unlimited way of saving it's really annoying, and the quick save requires an item. At the start, this item will cost a lot for your pocket, and you probably won't know how to craft it. But as you get stronger and get more money and materials, then acquiring the potion will be really easy. And in my opinion, it makes sense. Make the player struggle at the start and live with the consequence of his actions, but once he is strong and later into the game, allow him to min-max and try to do the things his own way. At the start, you experience what you can. At the end, you enforce the outcome you are more interested in seeing. Restraint to later freedom. And really, the game is good at giving you options. For example, at the start, I sucked at pickpocketing. I just didn't understand the minigame, and was always messing it up. So what was my solution? Knocking people the fuck out. They can't feel my fingers in their pocket if they can't feel nothing at all. The same for lockpicking, since the minigame sucks balls. So you might try to steal the key from the owner, allowing you to unlock the chest easily and bypassing the minigame. But at the same time, it will be clear that some situations will be easier by going with a certain option. For example, knocking people out in general creates noise, so if more than one person is sleeping nearby, you will probably get caught. Being way easier if you just pickpocket. And hey, this is a video game, but it's also realistic. Violence is not your only option. Depending on your perks, charisma, or speech, you can just try talking to people and getting what you need. And even your clothes affect this. If you're dressing nicely, your stats go up, making it easier to convince people, which makes sense, as they might mistake you for nobility or knighthood. But at the same time, you might be clanking all around in that armor, and visible from afar with those red and yellow clothes. So if you want to stealth, it might be better to blend in with the masses, and use something more simple and with darker tones. And man, there's so many skills that I could tackle that affect your gameplay. Like there's potions that make you create less sound or have better aim, and well, there's alchemy and herbalism in the game, meaning you could have focused on developing those skills. So you could mass produce a bunch of useful potion, and then even though you might not have leveled the other skills, you will still be able to achieve the same by using the potions. Or you might be a drunkard, gaining bonuses to your attack or charisma depending on how drunk you are, or what beverage you drank. Maybe you decided to learn how to read, giving you access to reading books that increase your skill level, or give you exclusive interactions to NPCs and dialogues in quests. Since, you know, very few people knew how to read back in the day, so it carried a lot of influence possessing that skill. Or fuck skills, you just focused on grinding money and now you can pay to upgrade your skills and can buy a bunch of things from the vendor. Remember, it's not like there isn't any alchemist, tailor or hunter living around. After all, your skills are human professions and qualities, not something exclusive to a hero, so even if you don't have the ability, you can just pay someone that has. And holy shit, when I'm telling you everything is connected in this game, I mean it. For example, I just talked about money, so did you know that prices change depending on your reputation? So if you go around completing quests for him or for his neighbors, and doing fair trades with everyone, your reputation grows. People respect you, and so they are willing to pay higher for your goods or to give you a friendly discount. And you can even haggle prices, but then we go back to your skills, and things like speech and charisma affects your margin on how much you can haggle the price. So if you decided to focus on doing quests for a specific town, it in turn allows you to more easily acquire better gear. Okay, let's talk about quests, since they can make or break a game. Take Skyrim for example. As much as I enjoyed the game, it doesn't take long until I feel disconnected of what I'm doing. Since there is so many quests in the game that eventually I don't know why I'm doing it, to who I'm doing it, I can't imagine what the reward will be, and either how long or hard will it be. Now, this is not to say Skyrim doesn't have good quests. It has. Places like the Dark Brotherhood, the Companions, and Serena are some of my favorite quests ever. But it's also clear why. A bond. I want to develop a bond to the people in this world. I want to feel like my actions and the fact I undertook a quest had an impact on the people who asked for help. That's why people love the quests I've mentioned, because it allowed us to connect and care for the characters on those places, and to see in future quests what impact our previous quest had. And this will happen a lot in Kingdom Come, not only by the uniqueness of each quest, but also by the personality of each NPC, and the fact you will in general come back to do more quests with them. It feels like every quest that was put into the game was done with a purpose. For example, take this side quest about a weaponsmith. He has learned about a rumor surrounding a legendary sword, and he wants you to collect the fragments so he can reforge it. Cool, a fetch quest, but wait a minute. It's not like the fragments are somewhere hidden. In fact, they have all been sold. So the more you listen to it, the more it sounds like this mythical item is just snake oil that someone was selling to gullible blacksmiths. But you decide to fetch it anyway. This quest will then force you to visit each blacksmith in different towns, making you learn the map, and each one of them will have a different response. Some will play dumb and allege they never bought a fragment, only for you to break into their house and find it hidden. Others will proudly say they have it and that it changed their lives, so you know they are enamored with the object, and you guess he keeps it on himself at all time, so you pickpocket out of him. Others will be on the fence about the fragments, so with enough speech, you convince them that it was just a superstitious item and you buy it out of them. And many NPCs will do the same. A hunter will ask you to start hunting hares, to roe deer, to full-on red deers and then boars. But he will only ask for bigger game once you hunted the smaller ones. And he will even reward things that make sense, like money, bow and arrows, or luxury clothing made from the leather. And this amount of quest chains is so good, because you will get to develop a liking to the NPCs. After all, they weren't a one-and-done type of deal, but rather a guy that you talked multiple times with and that learned why he needs the things he's asking, why he is the way he is, and so much more information. And really, there is some really cool NPCs. There is an executioner and all the heavy burden and social judgment that comes with the profession, but it also leads to a funny quest where you botch an execution. Another quest about a ghost stories and cleansing spirits. One about witches in the wood, and let me tell you, those witches are definitely getting some wood, alright, if you know, you know. There will be brawlers that fight for money, military quests to eliminate bandit camps and retrieve their ears as trophy, helping out a friend to get some pussy, or helping a doctor save the sick. And even the DLCs are super creative. Your friend Johanka will begin to see visions, with you hunting alleged demons, helping people with gambling problems, and even cleansing yourself of your sins. All of this to end in a heresy inquisition, and depending on how well you did on the quest chain, different outcomes can befall Johanka. Or you might get a flashback and play with Teresa, seeing how her last days before the attack were, and seeing how she ended up saving you. Or you might partake in a combat tourney, fighting rounds and getting different parts of gear each time you win. But the tourney is only available once a week, so you can't just speedrun it. There's also a city builder one where you get to manage the construction of a town, using a lot of money but also unlocking a bunch of things, and eventually revenue. And you can even contract people from around the map to work for you there. And there's one where you can join a band of mercenaries, leading to a lot of combat encounters if that's what you are craving, especially some more difficult ones. And yeah, they even found a way to diversify the main quests. Even though you are doing warfare operations, there is also a lot of spying, with 2 quests where you have to either sneak in or disguise yourself and check out the enemy encampment. And even one crazy quest where you have to go inside a monastery and investigate the priests to see which one was a past mercenary, and boy, not only is it hard to get into the monastery, but discovering and killing the person, or choosing other means to finish the quest, is just really entertaining, even though this part of the quest is a little bit bugged. Now, minor spoiler ahead, skip to this time if you want none. My only complaint about the game is the overall end of the story, as you end the game without accomplishing any of the goals you set out to do. You haven't recovered your father's sword, and you haven't killed the man who murdered him, and instead ends up getting involved in the throne dispute. Now, this to me feels weird, since the story is good, but we end up without a conclusion or satisfaction. I understand partially why, since it works as a great cliffhanger for the player, so you now want to play the next game in the franchise to close out the story. And also serves as motivation to the main character. After all, he is more willing to partake in the throne war if he knows the man who stole the sword and the man who killed his father are involved in this, meaning he then has emotional stakes in the war. But I do think that if we at least had recovered the sword, it could have served as enough to not alter that much in the plot or the motivation, while still at least providing a little bit of closure to the initial quests. But don't let that demotivate you. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has a lot of praise, so even if the game didn't close that well in the first game, the second one will more than build and deliver on those promises. And I hope you give this game a shot, or go play 2 if your PC can handle. I don't think the story of 1 is that necessary for you to understand what happens in 2, but it will allow you to develop a better bond with Henry and his journey, since after all, you were there since the beginning, from when he didn't even know how to handle a sword or had any coin in his pocket. And hey, maybe if you wanted to play KCD2 but your PC couldn't handle, I don't know, maybe the first game will run now that it's a little bit older? And that's it, I'll see you on the next one.